Hey guys, I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com. Have you ever wanted to work on Wall Street or maybe ring the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange or have a nice apartment in Midtown Manhattan? Well, I can't help you with any of that, but there's one device that may be able to help you out at least a little bit. It's the Samsung Continuum with Verizon Wireless. It's available now for $199.99 after a rebate, and it's a member of Samsung's Galaxy S lineup. Now, you may be thinking, why in the world did he bring up all those stock references? Well, there is a reason. Samsung, when they were talking about the Continuum, the ticker display at the bottom of the device, they said it was inspired by the financial industry. You know, the tickers that you see at the bottom of CNBC or CNN or any sort of program like that. It gives you a quick burst of information, and then it's gone and it moves on to the next thing. That was the inspiration behind the ticker on the Continuum. It's a cool feature, but what else does the device have? Is it a cool device? Is it a nice high-end device? Does it compete with the Droid line? We'll find out in the review. But first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with two of these bad boys for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway. You know one thing I like about Best Buy Mobile? It's non-biased shopping. You don't go in, you don't have to worry, or you go in rather, you don't have to worry about them saying, you know, T-Mobile sucks, or Sprint's this and that, and Verizon's the best, and AT&T is the worst, or vice versa. It's unbiased. They sell all the carriers. They're unbiased. You don't have to worry. You get the honest opinion, and you get what's best for you at Best Buy Mobile. Enough of that. Let's get into the review. The ticker-toting Samsung Continuum review starts right now. Okay, here it is. The Samsung Continuum with Verizon Wireless. Now, the unique thing about this device, not only does it have a main display, which is 3.4 inches, but it has a 1.8-inch ticker just below the capacitive buttons below the display. So pretty neat there. Kind of a unique touch. And you know, for me, I've been using the device for a couple of days. In my opinion, it's not really, you know, it's cool, but it's definitely not a necessity item to have. That said, you know, kudos to Samsung for thinking outside of the box and, you know, and not doing a typical slab device or typical QWERTY slider or typical flip phone. This is something completely new. You know, and it's good, Samsung did a good job with a unique design. Let's recap a little bit on the specs. 1 GHz processor, Hummingbird processor, 5 megapixel camera, as I said, 3.4-inch display on the device, and it's running Android 2.1, not Android 2.2 or Froyo. It's supposed to come later in the year. I mean, this is a member of the Galaxy S line of devices, so technically it should get it by the end of the year. Will it get it by the end of the year? Who knows, but we can certainly hope. Design-wise, you know, it feels good in the hand. It's a nice curved kind of oval, if you will, device, and but otherwise feels good in the hand. Micro SD card slot on the right side. Camera shortcut button, as you can see, on the right side as well. Let's take a look here, just to get an idea. I can't remember what comes in the micro SD. 8 gigabytes. 8 gigabyte micro SD card comes with the device. On the left side, volume rocker, micro USB charging port, 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, and power button on the top as well. And then, of course, your 5 megapixel camera with a flash in the back. So it feels good in the hand. It's lightweight, and you know, given that it has two displays, it's they've done a good job of keeping it pretty small. So if you worked with any of the Galaxy S devices, be it the Epic, the Fascinate, the Vibrant, the Captivate, or the Galaxy Tab, this user interface looks pretty familiar to it. It's Samsung's TouchWiz user interface, which is what comes on all the devices I just said. And so if you've used one of those, you're already familiar with it. But you know, it's kind of an iPhone-looking interface. It gives it an iPhone appeal to Android. So for those people that think, you know, man, I wish the iPhone was on Verizon, well, it's not yet, at least, but you can get a very similar experience, at least in terms of design. So as I said, the Continuum is running Android 2.1 with Samsung's TouchWiz user interface. So if you worked with any of the Galaxy S devices, the Fascinate, the Captivate, the Vibrant, the Epic 4G, or the Galaxy Tab series, you're pretty familiar with this interface already. Basically, you know, I like to call it an iPhone look-alike. It gives an iPhone look and feel to Android. So for those people that say, you know, hey, I want, you know, an iPhone on Verizon, well, it's not here yet, but you get a pretty comparable user experience with TouchWiz. So that's installed on the Continuum. Now it's interesting, you know, it's a nice display and it's only 3.4 inches. So I find that the actual display itself, 3.4-inch Super AMOLED display, no doubt. So I find that because of the smaller size, the picture actually looks more crisp to me versus the 4-inch devices, the Galaxy S devices. But you know, typical in terms of TouchWiz, typical Verizon programs installed: 3G mobile hotspot, Bing, Blockbuster, City ID, which Verizon installs. Then you'll see a couple of different, you know, car cradle, desk cradle, daily briefing, which is Samsung's, well, just like it sounds, daily briefing. You get your weather, your news, your finances, and your schedule all in one place. So you have that. Of course, the typical programs pre-installed: Facebook, Android programs like Gallery and Gmail, but IM's on here, Kindle, Mini Diary, and Memo, which, you know, I've always complained that Android doesn't have a default memo application. It's nice to see on the Continuum, like the other Galaxy S devices that's on there out of the box. My Verizon Mobile, MySpace, Skype Mobile, Task Manager, which I'll get back to that a little bit more in depth in a few minutes, but it's nice to see a Task Manager pre-installed on the device, and it's a Task Manager by Samsung, so you don't have to go to the Android market and download Advanced Task Killer or anything of that nature. Tetris, Think Free Office, say it 3 times fast, Twidroid, VCast Music, VCast Tones, VCast Video, VZ Navigator, Write and Go YouTube, and then of course some stuff I've installed for the review, Quadrant Standard, and Speed Test. So typical Verizon programs, typical TouchWiz and Samsung stuff, and typical Android stuff. Now the home screens, you get 7 home screens, and you can configure that by clicking on the little icon, a little setup icon in the top left-hand corner, and then I can drag down the screen to change the order. So, you know, let's say I want to make this screen, I want to bring it over. So I'll hold it, drag it over, we'll stick it right there in the middle. So now that one's to the left of Buddies Now. So focusing a little bit more on TouchWiz, you'll notice a lot of changes outside of just the menu. You know, it is a ground up way of looking at Android. So there's people that are used to a vanilla version of Android 2.1 or a vanilla version of Android 2.2. It's very much a different experience. I mean, you'll notice everything from the notifications bar, where you have your 4 shortcut buttons pre-installed up the top, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and Airplane. In the Continuum's case, you know, it differs from Galaxy S device to Galaxy S device. But those four icons in the top corner to just the general color, blue and gray, versus being kind of the standard vanilla Android gray look with no buttons. So little differences like that. But you know, one that just crossed my mind I forgot to talk about in the beginning, the body. The body's very different. The capacitive buttons, you know, you take a device like the LG Optimus, which isn't an Android device, but you can see the capacitive buttons are clearly indicated even when the device is turned off. You know, this is the search button, this is the back button. You know, and same thing with a lot of the devices we're reviewing right now. The HD7, same thing. But on this one, you know, when the device is turned off, you can't see the capacitive buttons. They light up with the display. So, you know, let's see if I can angle it to get the light on it. You can see the display where the two displays break apart. And in between there, it's where the buttons are. So once you turn it on, you can see the buttons down there. Now, a cool thing, and I'll get into the ticker a little bit more in a few minutes, but one cool feature about the ticker, when you want to bring it up without turning the display on, there are some hot corners here you can activate in the device, and you can touch those and bring it up. And same thing, you can take it away as well. So if you want to check the time, you don't want to turn your device on, click that, check the time, click that, turn it off. So with a 3.4-inch primary display, my first concern was, you know, man, this thing's going to be frustrating to type on. But you know, when I went to the new message and I played around with it a little bit, it's not as bad as I thought. Now that said, if you're coming from a 4.3-inch device or a 4-inch device, the Evo, the HD7, one of the Galaxy S devices, the first batch of Galaxy S devices, it is a little bit smaller. You can see, you know, the keys are small, and even though you can use it in landscape mode, still smaller display. So, you know, we can type something like hello, how are you? That's boring. Hello, how are you is pretty boring. Let's do the quick phone cat jumped and attacked the tablet dog. The quick phone cat jumped and attacked the tablet dog. So you can see, you know, it's still, I was still able to type pretty quickly, even with the smaller 3.4-inch display. Now with your input methods, you get 2 options on the Continuum out of the box. You get swipe and the Android keyboard. I'm not a swipe fan. I think the world of the product, but I'm not used to using it as a keyboard in my everyday use, but you know, works and is very functional as well. But again, you know, even swipe users may be frustrated with the slightly smaller screen. So, you know, it's one of those things where I'd say take a look at it in store, especially if you're coming from a 4+ inch device. Take a look at this in store, make sure the screen is big enough for you if you do a lot of messaging or emailing or anything of that nature. But otherwise, you know, I've been very pleased with it. Now let's take a look at the ticker in action, because messaging is one of those places where when you have the device turned off, the ticker will light up when you get a text message. So I'm going to send a test text message from one of my devices over here in the corner, one of the demo devices, and you'll see it light up. Now, you know, it's one of those things, like I said in the beginning of the video, you know, there it is. You can see text message, hey, and it'll go away. Now I can bring that back up by hitting the hotkeys, as I said, and I can scroll from right to left. I can see my my news feed, Reuters, see my time, the weather in the left-hand corner, and I can go back here, and this is kind of my notifications menu. See if I can zoom it up where you can see those icons even though they're blank. Messaging, voicemail, email, missed calls, and social networking updates as well. So, I'm working with this without the display being turned on at all. And I can access it from there. Now, as soon as I want to read this message, it's not like I click the message and it lets me read it on the ticker. As soon as I click the message, it turns on the display. So, it's one of those things. I definitely think it's cool. I definitely think there's a purpose. It's functional, but it's one of those things for me at least. If I'm going to click it and it's going to bring up the main display, why not just bring up the main display in the first place? It would be one thing for me if I could read the message down here, bring it back up once it flashes up the first time, and do a couple other things. But for example, Reuters, and I could be wrong, but I haven't found a way at least yet rather to scroll the news down. So let's say I want to see the next article, or I want to scroll down through my feed. As soon as I click it, it brings it up on the main display. So I definitely think there's potential with these tickers and with things like that. The idea was a very good one, but looking at it from a practical standpoint, I just don't see myself using it, or somebody like me using it that often when I can just turn on the display. So it's cool that you can bring up the news and messages and things like that on the bottom, but as I was saying a second ago, it's very limited. That said, let's take a look at the ticker settings by clicking on this little button down here at the bottom. You can see it brings up tabs, all SNS, which is social networking services, RSS, or events. I mistakenly thought when I first reviewed the Galaxy S devices that the SNS was an error. It's not. It's actually social networking services. But you can see the RSS feed, and this is what I'm talking about. I'm looking at Reuters. I'm looking at that first article on Reuters. Let's say I wanted to see the next one after, the ESPN one about Duke leading and UConn moving to number 9. Now, if I wanted to read that, to my knowledge at least, I haven't been able to find a way to get to that without bringing the full display up. So it's a little bit limited in what it can do. But this is what you see when you bring up the ticker settings. And you can see that the messages I've sent back and forth between my demo phone and myself, those events, and then all, which brings all of those together in one spot. Now let's click the menu and let's go into ticker settings. And you can see this is what you can do, or what the ticker can do. So you can group by social networking, weather, RSS feeds, display setting, or ticker sleep time. Now whenever the RSS feeds update, or you get a message, or anything that causes that ticker to activate, you can turn on ticker sleep time. You can set it from, let's say, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You're asleep anyway. You don't want to waste the battery with it powering on and off every few minutes. So you can turn that on, conserve the battery, and it keeps the ticker from coming on in a dark room. The display settings, you can see, very simple, very easy, or very I can't talk today. Very obvious backlight notification, ticker display duration, activate the grip sensor, which the grip sensor is what I was talking about with the sides. And go back. RSS feeds. I think the reason why I can't talk is because I'm still on Thanksgiving. My mind is still on Thanksgiving holiday, so, back to that, back to the grind Monday. Preloaded RSS feeds, user-added RSS feeds, ringtone vibration, weather, you can manage your weather location, and, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here, when I click that, it brings up, click a little bubble, it brings up the weather in my instance for Charlotte. So you can have a city list, you can change those around, you can configure the settings for weather by, let's say, auto refresh every 3 hours, let's say. And go back, and then we can see social networking, where you can add your Facebook, your MySpace, and your Twitter messages to the ticker as well. So again, there's a lot you can do with it, but it's very limited once you get past that initial step of receiving the message.